Hello, how's it going, everybody? I'm here today to talk about something a little bit different. Um, I haven't really spoken about this specific subject on this channel that much. I think I might have mentioned about the first theatrical film that came out based upon the games, but I've not really gone into any detail. But in this video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about my thoughts of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the film, and I'm also going to kind of talk a bit about my thoughts on Five Nights at Freddy's. I very, very recently have finally gotten around to checking out Five Nights at Freddy's 2, which is the sequel to Five Nights at Freddy's. When it comes to Five Nights at Freddy's, I am someone that has not really played the games, and I'm probably going to get a lot of backlash from Five Nights at Freddy's fans saying you have to check the games out, and I will get round to it. I do definitely want to check out the games and actually give them a little bit more time. I have really looked into the lore of the games, the lore and the story and everything, and the different kind of time zones and everything about the games when it comes to the lore. For some reason, I've been really fascinated with the lore behind the games, the story of the original child that died, everything with William Afton, everything with his children afterwards and his family, and everything about it I have just been drawn to when it comes to the lore of the film, of the games. And now when it comes to the films, the Five Nights at Freddy's movies, they are, by the looks of it, they are staying within the IP. They are kind of adapting the games, and they are giving like little Easter eggs that fans of the games will understand, and certain little things that the fans would really appreciate that have played the games. They are still respecting the IP. However, I've actually watched some videos recently since Five Nights at Freddy's 2 came out, and it's kind of interesting that they are, because what I've looked into with Five Nights at Freddy's when it comes to the lore, I can see that and understand and also respect the fact that they are indeed starting to, within the films, the movie franchise, if you will, they are starting to kind of like change the lore up a little bit, because there is some significant changes in the films compared to the games. Certain characters that shouldn't, well, one specific character that shouldn't actually be there until a little bit later on. And that character is Vanessa. Now, if anybody's played the games would know Vanessa is of course, indeed the daughter of William Afton, who is the main person that orchestrates and murders the children, stuffs their bodies into the animatronics, and starts experimenting with bringing spirits back and, basically possessing the animatronics and all this kind of stuff. And it's his kind of mastermind plan thing. Originally, Vanessa, from my recollection, Vanessa, obviously, she was a small child. And she does end up being killed eventually, but you find out more about that, I believe, in Sister Location, because they did a game called Sister Location, and in Sister Location, she is put, William Afton's daughter is put into the baby animatronic. And what is really cool is you do actually see a little Easter egg, and the baby animatronic is actually in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the film, which was actually quite surprising to see. Because when it comes to the theatrical films, that's where it changes things up a little bit, because the fact that Vanessa, she never died. She was never, when it comes to the films, she never died. She was never stuffed into the baby animatronic. That never happened. I mean, in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, spoiler alerts, and before I get too far into it and too carried away, if you haven't seen Five Nights at Freddy's 2 yet, do not watch past this point. All right? Because what I'm talking about now is was in the trailers. And if you've seen the first Five Nights at Freddy's film, then you will probably understand where I'm coming from. Or if you've ever played any of the games, however. But yeah, Vanessa's an interesting character, and the fact that the theatrical films, the film adaptations, are changing the law, but at the same time kind of rewriting and making things a little bit more, making a bit more sense when it comes to the law, because when it comes to the video games for the Five Nights at Freddy's thing, it's very fractured and it's all over the place. Because you've got different continuities, you've got stuff that is canon and not canon, stuff that's like alternative and extra stories, because you've got books, Five Nights at Freddy's books as well. Some of them do kind of add a little bit more to certain scenarios, but it has come to know that Scott, the creator of Five Nights at Freddy's, the games, and also the author of the books and so on, he's come forward and said that he regrets some decisions that was made when it comes to the games and other stuff and other different media that he's produced or has been brought out, because he feels like there was a lot of these games got really popular. He started earning a lot of money, and there was a very, very fast turnaround when it came to releasing another title. And because of this, he wasn't really giving himself enough time to properly think things out, and unfortunately, he regrets he was a bit younger, and he had a younger head on his shoulders, and he was just churning out stuff, and he wasn't really thinking about it too closely. And because of this, the timeline is kind of fractured, and things sort of confuse things. And it's also, there's a lot of going back in time, as well as you've got the present time, and then you've got the different time zones and time points. You've got the original bite, and then you've got another timeline, and it's at different locations. You've got each game is different locations, different animatronics that are coming into play. You've got the toy animatronics, you've got the original animatronics, and then the FNAF 1 game animatronics. Then you've got FNAF 2 animatronics, and then you've got the Withered animatronics, and then you've got the Nightmare animatronics, and you've got the sister location ones. You've got all these different things, different factors. And there's also other ones like Golden Freddy. You've got the puppet, and all these different characters. And yeah, it gets really quite confusing. And even Scott himself has said that it's very confusing when he's trying to. But I think with these films, obviously, because he's the main person when it comes to writing the scripts, and Scott is actually kind of writing them and actually working with the production company behind the films. Blumhouse they're working with him, and he's working with them, and he won't let anything go through until it's been officially ticked off in his favour. Because when it comes to the theatrical films, what's really quite interesting is that they are technically kind of rewriting and changing the law, but at the same time still respecting the IP. And I kind of think that the movie adaptations, I think the story makes a bit more sense, even though there is some big changes, and there will likely be a third film. And what's looking very interesting with Five Nights at Freddy's 2, it sets up some interesting stuff, and I have a feeling what's possibly going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen in the third one, or if they're going to try and make as many as possible within the original games, or if they're going to expand and start going into like sister location, or start going into the more recent games. I don't know what they're going to do. But at the moment, they're adapting the main games. Well, at the moment, it's the first two. But technically, you could say, because they've, like I said as well, they've changed how even the animatronics work as well. Because in the games, all of the animatronics are possessed. All the animatronics are possessed by different children from different time points that William Afton murdered. That's the whole point. When it comes to the games, it's a proper paranormal, supernatural sort of horror type thing. All the animatronics, no matter what version they are, there's a spirit involved in some shape or form. But with the films, it seems like the Five Nights at Freddy's one film, the theatrical film. What's interesting is that film actually, all of them, Chica, Freddy, Bonnie, and Freddy, and all the original ones from the first film, all of those animatronics are indeed possessed by a child. But when it comes to Five Nights at Freddy's 2, they bring in the puppet character that is in the film was named Charlotte. It was a young girl that was sadly killed by William Afton. I believe it was 1983. I believe the time zone for that. And basically, she basically is at a birthday party at the Five Nights at Freddy's when it was an actual restaurant. She witnesses a child going into the back room, being, beckoned to come with William Afton in the spring Bonnie or the Bonnie suit, and Charlotte ends up in the film and follows him, and tries to does actually save the young boy that is beckoned in. But unfortunately, she's as we see in the film, she sadly does get stabbed and she does die, which is what happened. Which obviously in the games, I believe she's known as Charlie. I think the fans have named her Charlie, but in the film they called her Charlotte. But she's the same character, just they've changed the name ever so slightly. And then she ends up possessing the puppet animatronic. And that is all kind of within the lore, give or take, of the games as well. And but what's interesting, the difference of how the animatronics work is, in the film, they make it so that the puppet actually is able to wirelessly control the other animatronics. And that's where when the withered animatronics come into it. So in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, you've got you got the withered animatronics, and then you've got the toy animatronics in Five Nights at Freddy's 2. And basically she has the ability to, or the puppet animatronic has the ability to wirelessly control these animatronics. So you've in the second film, there's only really one spirit child that's possessing an animatronic. The rest of it is through technology that was created with the puppet, and that is a little bit different when it comes to the games, because I believe in the games, of course, like I've just mentioned, all the animatronics are possessed by a child, including the puppet, and the puppet does have some interesting significance, because the puppet, whenever the puppet shows up, it sort of does kind of awaken the spirits within the animatronics. So there is a significant reason why the puppet is there in the games. But when it comes to the film, I believe they have changed it and made it more, it's like a technological thing, wirelessly able to kind of connect with the animatronics and bring them back online. And they needed Abby, which is the young child of the main character, Abby, who befriended the original in the first film, the other animatronics. Ended up, using Abby to get rid of the firmware so that they could actually go outside of the pizzeria. So there is some little significant changes to the film when it comes to the films compared to the games, and I think it makes a little bit more sense, because what I've watched in regards to lore breakdown videos, it is very kind of interesting and also kind of confusing. because obviously you really have to do some research. You have to look into the books as well as play the games. There's also like little mini games as well within the game. So you've got the main game, which is the whole thing of checking the cameras and this, that, and the other. And then you've got like little mini games that give you a little bit of backstory of what actually happens and goes on throughout the whole lot. So what I think is interesting is, I mean, I just want to say as well that I did enjoy Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I did enjoy both of them, and both of the theatrical, the movie adaptions for Five Nights at Freddy's. I've enjoyed both of them. I've enjoyed both of those films. However, I really enjoyed Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I thought it was a much better film. I think the direction that they seem to be going in, and the way that they're sort of changing things up a little bit, but I think these changes make sense. Not just because they're adapting it to the big screen, but I think these changes are on purpose. Because obviously Scott has said in interviews, like fairly recently, within the last year or so, has said that he regrets not really thinking things through. And this is kind of his chance to sort of like make things a little bit more easier to understand for a general audience as well as fans of the games. And also still give little Easter eggs and little tidbits here and there that the fans would appreciate. So they're still keeping within what the fans would love to see, but also for a general audience and people that have never really played the games or never played the games, they would understand what's going on with the story. So it's kind of like they're putting general audience as well as fans, that they're kind of meshing those two factors together. And I think what's interesting with these films, and I am looking forward to the third one whenever that comes out. We probably might get a green light for a third one very soon, because I do know Five Nights at Freddy's 2 did very well at the box office. It definitely earned more than the movie was, well, how much they spent on the film to make it. I just love everything about the story and the backstory and the lore of the games as well as these films. I think it's a really interesting concept. I mean, I love anything to do with possession. I love my possession horror films. Even though I will say the term horror film for these Five Nights at Freddy's films, I would say that in a very loose term. So if you're a fan that's expecting to go to a horror film, to see a horror film when it comes to these Five Nights at Freddy's, might be a little bit disheartened, because they're not. They are a horror film a little bit, but I would say they're very soft. There is the odd bit here and there where you do see certain characters, certain people get killed, but a lot of it is like you don't see. You kind of like, it's implied, or it might be kind of like a silhouette of a shadow. You might kind of see it on the wall. You don't see it firsthand. It's kind of done in a way so that you know exactly what's happened. So it's kind of like you can fill it up, or you can use your imagination of what's just happened, or they make it a little obvious by a shadowy silhouette of what's just happened, like a character being killed. So it is, I wouldn't say it's a stereotypical horror film in the fact that it's all about murder, ripping people apart, this, that, and the other. It's not a gore fest in that respect compared to other films within the horror genre. It is mostly about the small children. It's about what William Afton did to these young children. He murdered them. He stuffed their bodies into the animatronics. He's like experimenting with bringing spirits back and like imprinting them, and he's studying all this and this really sick, warped sort of mentality when it comes to it. And it's that side of it that really kind of appeals to me. Anything that's a bit sick and twisted and psychological in that way, I've always really enjoyed when it comes to films. So going forward, then, um, I have a couple theories. I think it's kind of obvious. I think we're definitely gonna, obviously, as we see it at the end of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, we have some interesting little extra bits in the credits. We get an extra scene where we see three guys in the pizzeria from the first film, the first adaptation film, and they discover William Afton in the Springlock suit. They're looking it. These guys, they're looking for something because they're opening a themed, like they're opening a business, and it's themed on the murders and Five Nights at Freddy's, or Freddy's Pizzeria. And it's based on that, and they're looking for something unique that they could steal and use. And they come across William Afton. Obviously, he's dead, or so you think. He's in the Springlock suit, and they attempt, cover him over, and they're going to take him away. And then you see him come back. The suit comes back on, and he comes back to life. Also, So of course, with that, definitely in the third film we're going to see him. Yeah, it's going to be interesting going forward. It is going to be very, very interesting going forward about how they're going to adapt things and how they're going to kind of like clear things up. How Scott's going to clear things up when he's got this other opportunity to kind of like make the law behind it all make a bit more sense. Because obviously we're going to get Springlock, which is when William Afton comes back after being killed, and he's imprisoned in the Springlock suit. So we're going to get him come back, probably in the third film. Also, what's interesting as well, like I brought up Vanessa a moment ago. Originally, Vanessa. This is interesting because originally in the original games, Vanessa, when she was a small child, William Afton made a different animatronic called the baby animatronic, and you see this in the sister location game, and she ends up getting put into. She ends up inside and dies in the baby animatronic. And what's interesting with Vanessa in the films, obviously she's in the first one, she's a police officer in the first one, and then when it comes to the second one, she's sort of still kind of living with the trauma of her past as a child. When she was a child, looking at the past as a child, and then she's like looking, trying to kind of comprehend what happened to her at the hands in the events of the last film, and she's going into these like dream stages, like in her sleep, she's like interacting, interacting in a way with William Afton, her father. And what's interesting is that at the end of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, we see like another little, obviously right at the very, very end, just before the credits, we see the puppet animatronic possess Vanessa. So that could imply something interesting. Now, there is other characters within the IP of the games. You've got a character called Glitch Trap. Trying to say that. It's a tongue twister. And then there's also another one called Vanny. Another character called Vanny. Now, with Vanny, I'm not too sure about when Vanny first appears, but she is more apparent in the more recent games. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with that, because Vanny is actually Vanessa. I believe it's Vanessa within a suit. And it's sort of like she's been possessed, and she's just like completely psychotic. So it's kind of like a split personality thing. So it's a very interesting thing. So there's that character, or they're going to go with maybe Glitch Trap. Either Vanny or Glitch Trap. But Glitch Trap, I believe, is meant to be some sort of like AI conscious thing. It's more to do with technology, like an AI thing. So I don't know. I don't know whether it's just going to be the puppet. She's just going to end up possessed as the puppet, and she ends up getting either released from the puppet in the third film, or William Afton is finally going to, or William Afton is going to finally, because the whole idea is, that William Afton wants Vanessa to join him. Neil saying Five Nights at Freddy's 2, I have to mention William Afton's son comes into it as well. So they kind of want to bring the family back together in this twisted way, continue this really psychotic, messed up sort of thing, bring his daughter into it and also his son into it. So going forward, I think it's going to be interesting. I don't know whether they're going to go down the Vanny route in the next film, or if they're going to bring in the nightmare frames, because I would love to see the nightmare frames on the big screen, because I love the nightmares. The nightmare ones, with the nightmare frames, or the nightmare animatronics, it's a slightly different game where you're in the family home, and I think you're playing as a small child, and you're in your bedroom, and these animatronics are sorting like they're lurking in the shadows, and also they're in the house, and they're trying to get you. That's what happens within that game, and that's where the nightmare animatronics come into it. But like I said, how the game sort of layout, and when it comes to the theatrical adaptations or the movie adaptations, the law has been changed and it's been altered slightly. So I don't know how they're going to implement. I don't know how they're going to implement the nightmare frames, or if they're going to skip the nightmare frames, because they've done the withered ones. The nightmare ones are really cool. I love the designs of the nightmare frames. So it'd be interesting to see if I don't know whether it's going to be the third film, or if they might leave it for the fourth film to bring the nightmare frames in. The way my head's going, I think we're going to get Springtrap. Definitely Springtrap in the third film. He's going to come back. And then it's going to be like a mixture of Vanessa being possessed by the puppet, and then Springtrap coming back. So Springtrap, I think, is going to be like one of the main, the main like threat. I think he's going to be like one of the main threats that they've got to deal with. And then you've got Vanessa getting possessed by the puppet. There's that factor. So, and also there's like a little voice clip thing as well at the very end at the end of the credits. It's like a voice note, which is Charlie's father, because in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 you see the father of Charlie, who is the girl that possesses the puppet. You see him, and I believe it's him on the voice note, leaving like a voicemail, because what's significant about his character, Charlotte's father, is his name. He's actually the guy, I believe, that is more, well, in the games anyways. He's the guy that in the games and also in some of the books. Charlotte's father, if they are going in that route, I don't know, but he is actually is like the partner with William Afton. He's the guy that comes up. He's the one that builds the animatronics, I believe. I think he designs them and builds them, and William Afton sort of like screwed him over and kind of took the glory for himself, and he ended up going into this twisted other side of it. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting because you've got all these different factors at play. They really threw a lot of interesting stuff at us, at the fans as well. Mostly at the fans that would understand what's going on. They threw a lot at us, to because it's up in the air. It's up in the air that in like. But I think it's definitely Springtrap is definitely going to make an appearance in the third film. I'm pretty damn sure it's going to be mostly Spring. He's going to be the main issue that they've got to contend with, and I think because and then obviously you've got I don't know whether they're going to do Glitch Trap. We're bringing in technology with the fact of like wireless technology to like they used the idea of wireless technology with the puppet commanding the other animatronics. So I don't know whether they're going to go down the road of Glitch Trap, that is like an AI thing. It's like an AI conscious sort of thing that possesses someone. And yeah, and then you got Vanny, which is Vanessa, that is possessed. It's like a split personality thing, which is a different character as well. So I don't know, because it kind of throws me as you see her getting possessed. There is at least possibly Vanny, or maybe they're going to do Glitch Trap, or they're going to bring in a different character to play another character. I don't know, because like I said, Scott has changed the law when it comes to the movie adaptions, when things have been changed. So I don't know. It's interesting. I am very interested indeed to see how happens going forward. But I will say I thoroughly enjoyed Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I really, really enjoyed that film. I thought it was, compared to the first one, I thought the first one was quite safe. Yeah, you do see some people get killed, but it was much more of a simplistic story. Like the story was more simpler. The whole film just the first Five Nights at Freddy's film, for me, it just was like it's safe. And fans seem to relatively be okay with it. But when it comes to Five Nights at Freddy's 2, I think it's leaps and bounds a much better film. It's a better watching experience. You've got the withered animatronics in there. You've got the toy animatronics, and then you've got the puppet in it. That I thought the puppet was handled really, really well. And of course you've got the original animatronics from the first film coming back into it. And then yeah, I just think Five Nights at Freddy's 2 was a better film. And the fact that the animatronics ended up going outside of the pizzeria and ended up going to the school and tracking down certain people and attempting to kill other people, it made them much more of a threat than they were in the first film. So I really, really did enjoy Five Nights at Freddy's 2. I thought it was a much better film compared to the first one. But I am genuinely interested to see what happens in the third one, or what happens when they extend them, because the games go into different time zones, different points. You've got very futuristic games, and then you've got the VR stuff, and you've got all the different games, sister location. I've got a feeling that we're probably going to get a sister location adaptation at some point. I don't know whether that's going to be that might be after the third film, or they might adapt sister location, because we've given us an Easter egg. Given an Easter egg of you see the baby animatronic in the second film, it makes me wonder that's maybe them saying we might maybe get a sister location adaptation. So you get the sister location animatronics coming into it. But in order to do that, they would have to go down more William Afton's family, like his wife and what happens to his son, because and all that, and yeah, but like it's confusing because you've got the game law and the movie law, so I don't know how they're gonna change it. I don't know what they're gonna introduce in the upcoming film or films. but I'm definitely interested in seeing what they do get up to and what happens in the end. But there we go. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I will get around to playing Five Nights at Freddy's the games. I probably might be the only person on the planet right now that's never properly played them. But I am going to definitely play the games. But anyway, take care. Thank you. Bye-bye for now.